Self-love, King David. King David wrote Psalm 23 and he said, "The Lord, my shepherd, and his banner over me is love." The root of King David's love was knowing that he was loved by the Lord. Um, so it wasn't just that, wow, I'm like the coolest dude in town. It was like God loves me so I can love myself. I think that was David's attitude. David knew that he was wonderfully and fearfully made, that who he was physically, emotionally, spiritually was a wondrous masterpiece, wondrous work of God. David knew that God helped him batter bears and lions. He accomplished things. He showed a great deal of courage. And those were things that helped him to love himself. When we accomplish things like set goals for ourselves that we accomplish, even if we don't accomplish them, but we just are courageous enough to try, that can help us love ourselves a bit more, especially when we have dreams that we may be afraid to pursue. When we actually are brave enough to pursue our dreams and trust God to help us accomplish them, that can help us love ourselves more. David said, "My tongue is the pen of a ready writer." So David was a wonderful poet, a wonderful lyricist, a wonderful songwriter. And I think when we recognize that we have talents that we've taken the time to develop, this too feeds into our ability to love ourselves. David said, "Create in me a clean heart," when he sinned against God with Bathsheba in an act of adultery. And so it just tells me that King David was well aware of the frailty of his humanity, and he owned up to it, he accepted it, and he knew that even though he sinned and he did something that he wasn't proud of and that God wasn't proud of, that it never stopped God from still loving him. So he was secure in God's love. And he knew that he was a man after God's own heart. I think when we do things God's way and we give God our whole heart, our whole life, our whole everything, and we follow him wholeheartedly, I think it helps us feel good about ourselves, because those kinds of people are the people that God really loves, that he really holds in high esteem. And when God holds us in high esteem, you'll find that other people's opinions, especially if they are not in line with God's opinions, that they will take a backseat very easily. And this is what I believe David said in Psalm 139. "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well." So I remember when I was in high school, I did French for 7 years in high school. And in my sixth or seventh year, I started reading these magazines. I forget the name of the magazines, these wonderful French magazines that the library used to purchase. And I remember in one of them, they showed a picture. That's just an ambulance. In one of them, they showed a picture of an embryo in its a human embryo in its initial stages of development, and it was so incredible to me that the embryo literally looked as if it was knit together. Like they had these microscopic views of the embryo. They got really close up shots of the embryo, and it really did look as if it had been knit together. And when you think of somebody knitting, it's a very careful, meticulous kind of action and exercise. And to think that God took the care to knit you and me together tells us just how much we mean to God. It's not like he took some paint and just threw it against the canvas. No, he knit us together. He took the time to knit each one of us together in our mother's womb. And it continues on. Psalm 139. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. So even before we were born, thousands of years before we were born, ancient days before we were born, timelessly before we were born, God already knew each one of us and ordained the days that He had designed for each one of us. That's very special to think that we were known even before we were born.